Yo, everybody, welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest for the last episode of Off Panel until July, more than likely at least, is the co-writer of the Image series Time Before Time, the writer-artist of Immortal Hulk Flatline, and the artist of comics still. I swear he still draws comics. It's Declan Shalvey. Thanks for coming on, Declan.
Thanks very much, David. I still can't believe you say all that stuff at the beginning and you just don't
record it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the funny thing is I actually do my outro again for the most part every single time.
Yeah, I feel like I can do it along with you, Norbert.
Well, that's the really funny
Barnett.
thing. Well, so if somebody emails me, like one of the people who's a patron, the first thing that pops up in my head is the names that follow that person's name, because I actually have them all memorized. I remember telling some people when we did the live podcast at Big Bang that I could actually recite all of them in order. And at that point, I definitely could. I don't know if I could anymore, though.
You've changed it since, if I recall, though. Because I used to not say my name, even though I was a patron. You do now. So I was like, you definitely updated it there a few months ago.
I did when Sketch came back, because then, you know, I had to put that part in there. And then on top of that, there was a whole bunch of people that didn't click that they wanted to be included in that tier. And anyways, long story short, I had to add a bunch of people and then it totally threw me off. But there's still certain names. But you know what the funny thing is? Every once in a while, somebody who has been on there for a long time drops off for one reason or another. And then for like months afterwards, I wish it was not months, but it is months. For months afterwards, I continue to say their name where it used to be.
Right.
It kills me. But anyways, enough.
Well, this is fascinating stuff. I'm really glad to get into this.
Enough about me. I'm going to start with the last part of that, the sassing about the artist stuff. Do you even draw anymore? What the heck? You're a writer now. What's going on?
I did a whole one shot just like in February. All right, cut me some slack. All right, if that hadn't come out, I would accept the slack, but I think that I've delivered. I did a Wolverine short story that I wrote and drew, and I did I wrote and drew a story for the Ice Cream Man anthology. I've been drawing stuff, not a lot, but stuff.
Well,
I actually remember when the whole thing came out, because I was like, I'm glad to get something out again, because it did feel like it had been a long time.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, though. I mean, this is like one of the weird things about comics is, you know, last time we talked on this podcast was about two things. Bog Bodies, a comic that ended up coming out 2 months later than we originally discussed it, or, it coming out. And then The Punisher versus Barracuda, a comic that just hasn't come out. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing that up. But
no, it's okay. It's okay.
I will say that it is interesting because that creates a situation where you have drawn consistent interiors, but it puts you in a position where I was trying to figure out what the last consistent interior, like multiple issue interiors that you did. And I think it was Return of Wolverine, but I might be wrong about that.
No, yeah, you're right. Return of Wolverine, I did 3 of the 5 issues consecutively. I did like 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, before that was like the 2-in-1 one shot. And I had been working on Punisher in around all those. So, I mean, Punisher, I had 3. There was 4 fully completed issues done, but just didn't end up coming out. And weirdly, from the last time we talked, stuff that I had on the go, all of it pretty much has not happened or will not happen.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've got this whole new slate ahead of me. It's crazy how much can change in a year, because I'm one of the few people who has a fairly good idea of what I'm doing for the next while.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody in comics does, so I realize how fortunate I am. And then weirdly, it all got all thrown up in the air, and the dust has settled, and I know what I'm doing for the next while. But it's not what I thought I was going to be doing. It's pretty crazy.
That is one of the weird things about this past year, but I even more in particular for you is that people's schedules just got totally turned upside down. To your credit, I will say this. I mean, this time last year, even when we were privately talking, your next year looked like one thing. And then now it looks completely different. Just completely different. And that's through no fault of your own.
Yeah, no, just it was, just things, especially, I mean, the main factor, of course, was COVID. But I mean, it happened to everybody, so I certainly can't complain. I was definitely having a few tough weeks there in a row. One project fell apart, another project fell apart, and I was like, I said Nate Stockman started joking that I had some kind of curse, which was great. Thanks for that, Nate. But no, everything's kind of worked out nicely. I will say what did happen was it did force me to think what I wanted to be doing
Yeah.
more of, and I wanted to do less Return of Wolverines, which was say drawing a book, and more stuff that I owned or stuff that I wrote and drew, because I think I did a couple of short stories, story like the Nick Fury thing before, and I think I just made the decision that from now on I want to write and draw, and that's been and actually turned down some work like right after COVID, where I didn't really have anything lined up, and I could have taken some jobs, and that would have seen me through, but I remember just kind of making the decision of like, no, I'm gonna hold out for something that I can actually write and draw. And then the Hulk thing came around, and the Wolverine short story came around. So I don't know, they were really enjoyable. So I kind of made the decision to keep going in that direction. And I may not have done that if not for COVID. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I think it did force me to kind of look at what I wanted to be doing in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, is I've talked to a lot of creators about this very subject, and it's interesting talking to people because there's like two kind of different directions you can go. It's just like when things disappear, you can kind of grab whatever you can get. Or the other direction is you can realize that when things like this happen, you have no control in that situation. You don't have the ability to dictate whether or not you will have work to do and what that work will be or anything like that. And it seems to me that, not to make you seem like a control freak or something like that, but to a certain degree, if you take on like a writer-artist gig where you're doing X or Y or whatever, that's nice because you have the control on the creative side. Conversely, with the creator-owned, you have control on like the will this project exist side. So it seems like, the writer-artist stuff, when it's for hire, that works for you in one way, and then the other one is a very complementary way. That's kind of the direction you're feeling like you're going?
Yeah, like I'm currently working on a Marvel thing, and hilariously, I'm not actually writing it. I made this decision to only write and draw, and then I took a job drawing. But it's more than that. I can't get into it, but it's more complicated than that. But there is something very freeing about sitting down and drawing something that you don't own. Like, not to say you're not invested in it. Like, if it's Spider-Man or if it's Hulk or whatever, I'm going to enjoy the hell out of working on those. But it doesn't bring the level of administration and various tasks. And I mean, I've lost days to Time Before Time that have nothing to do with writing. It's solicits, or it's making out a plan, or it's working on design, or it's working
managing
on
Kickstarter.
The Kickstarter. Jesus, that ate up so much time, and none of which is like my job. So having the refuge of a work for hire art job is actually pretty great, because you can just sit down and just draw. Like, there's something very freeing about that. But at the same time, if I was only doing that, I think I would feel very hamstrung and not, if I don't, you'll have some creators who, if they don't get to do everything they want to do on their work for hire job, they'll throw a fit, and which is fine. But I also know at the end of the day, these things are not mine, so there's no point pretending that they are. Mm-hmm. I prefer put that energy into something that actually is mine. So it's worked out quite nicely, where I can pay the bills doing work that I genuinely enjoy, while taking the time to build something that I'll co-own and have more agency with.
Yeah. It's funny. I had Kyle Starks on the most recent episode, and one thing that we talked about, he's a big conventions guy. I think he said that he goes to like 24 to 32 a year or something like that. Yeah. I'm trying to imagine.
And that's coming from me. I do lots of shows. I'm not that many, though. Bloody hell.
I definitely couldn't. I'm like a 2 convention guy, and that's tops. And I don't even like table at it. I just like attend it, and I'm like, nope, that's enough. But what that normally allows him to do is, having the money that comes in from him selling books, doing commissions, doing this, doing that, whatever he's doing, is enough for him to kind of have freedom to choose what he wants to do, whether that's like Candy Mountain, or if it's Assassination, or the 6 Sidekicks of Trevor Keaton, whatever, like those, it allows him like the freedom to kind of have a little bit more control in his life. And, I'm not saying that this is the reason why you're doing it, but one nice thing about having that for hire work, beyond the fact that it's like maybe a little bit more purely creative and less like administrative, like you're talking about, it also allows you to have maybe a bit of a buffer when you're doing Time Before Time. Like Time Before Time seems like it's a big success, but if it wasn't, at least you would have this other work to kind of offset it a bit, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I'd also like I wouldn't be able to afford to pay people if I wasn't making,
Right.
Marvel DC rates. If if I was doing my own creator-owned book, like all in 100% writing and drawing, I wouldn't have the resources to be able to like get other projects made. And I like making projects. I like putting script in an artist's hands and seeing what they'll do with it, or I like playing with the design of something that isn't. Um, there's collaboration there in a different way that I do genuinely enjoy. And what I love about Time Before Time is that I didn't have to draw it. It's great, you know. But I won't lie. Like myself and Rory both be like, I'm glad I'm co-writing it because Rory's been able to split a lot of the administration stuff too, which is already like so much work on my end. But thankfully I'm spreading it out. So it is a lot to kind of stay on top of your deadlines and the project management that comes with writing a creator-owned project, along with the actual making of the project itself. It's a lot, but I think it kind of keeps you on your toes in every different respect. There's a nice symbiosis that comes with it.
Well, I think that management and administration element of creator-owned stuff is something that people sleep on, but it is useful. It's like you're kind of refining and building long-term skills that you can use in all kinds of different projects in a lot of ways, I think.
Yeah, like when I did Bog Bodies, I made a point of designing that book.
Hmm.
Not because I think I was in a stage in my career where I wanted to own my work a little bit more, which is why I started coloring. And I didn't like not being able to do a part of the process. Like I have lettered comics and I hated it. I never want to do it again. But I was able to do it, and I was able to draw and I was able to write and I was able to color, but I wasn't able to do design work. That was still confused me. So I made Bog Bodies. I mean, I wasn't being paid to do that. If anything, I paid everybody else, but I made it at least something where I got to flex those kind of muscles. And I was doing that with Time Before Time as well, but it just ended up being so much work. I kind of quit, and I asked Sasha Head to do it instead, and she did a much, 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 much better job. The book looks amazing, and I look at what I had originally. I'm like, God, this sucks. But I think I have learned to delegate. Is it the best use of my time to bust my head open over this design for a week or draw 5 pages of a Spider-Man story or something? Spider-Man's probably more helpful in the long run.
Yeah.
But so I think I went through the stage of like earning or widening my tool belt, as it were. And now I'm in a place where like, okay, I know how to do it, but I also know it's much better to have somebody else do it instead.
I think it's important to learn the things that you can, or, learn things that you can and want to do, but it's also important to, learn like what might be better in somebody else's hands. And I think that there's there's certainly no downside to recognizing that, hey, maybe Sasha Head's better at this than I am, because Sasha is unbelievable at design. So
yeah, she's handed in the process book, the Kickstarter we did, and oh man, it looks amazing. I remember the work that she did on the Image Plus magazine, which I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
Which is actually why I talked to her about Bog Bodies, because I designed Bog Bodies, but I also was flying blind. So I kind of like basically, paid her to kind of help me, to kind of work with me a bit to figure out like how to do this and how to do that. So we came to Time Before Time and it just became so much more work. And I knew like doing it for every issue is a lot of work. Maybe work with Sasha in a different way where like she's actually designing it and I'm providing feedback rather than the other way around, So, and it's been great, like, because I'm getting to kind of like work with design by just talking to Sasha, and she comes up with this cool stuff rather than me trying to like work everything out myself and seeing what she thinks. It's all her, and I don't know, it feels collaborative. It's really Sasha's work, but talking with her makes it feel like we're having a back and forth, which has been really really cool, because like it's great to see the stuff come together, but it didn't, I managed to draw a page last night instead of, banging my head over this design and have nothing to show for it. It's just, with a lot of this stuff now, it's just like, what's going to be the best use of my time? Is it arguing with somebody online, or is it like shutting off the internet and drawing? And there's so many of those things, especially wanting to know more about every stage of the craft is great. Like say coloring now, I'm coloring my own work, which means I've less pages drawn, but I feel like I'm owning my own work more, which leads to higher satisfaction. But like maybe there's a book that I shouldn't color in order to have the book done faster. Those are kind of questions to come up. But look, they're interesting problems to have.
Yeah, and there's always trade-offs with anything you do. I do think, obviously it depends on the project. It's like, if one is like a particularly good showcase piece, maybe you're like, no one's going to color me better than me, so I'm going to do this. So that makes sense. But I do, transitioning, I do want to briefly bring up Bog Bodies because it's interesting. Like this last year, full of challenges. You've learned a lot about what you want to do. You've had to rethink everything you do, but one thing that did actually come out was Bog Bodies, and we found out this week that it's getting a second print a year later. I do have to ask, what was the experience of launching a graphic novel, a graphic novella, I guess technically?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, no, I would say graphic novel. I think if it's 80 pages of story, so I think 60. Personally, this isn't a proper,
official,
probably established. I think if it's 60, you can say novella, but I think 80 counts as novel.
So what was the experience of doing? Like not even doing. You were done with the book. The book was donezo by the time the pandemic hit. What wasn't was actually getting it out there and getting it in front of people and promoting it and everything like that. I mean, clearly it worked because it's now a year later, you're hitting a second print, but what was the experience like?
Well, it was really sucky for a while because, I'd worked on the book for so long and I paid everybody and I did all the design and this, that, and the other. And then the book was coming out, which is great. And then it wasn't. And I didn't know when it was. And that sucked. But weirdly, I think it actually worked out for the better. Because the book went to print, I think it was printed as the pandemic broke.
Mm-hmm. Because it was originally coming out in March, right?
Yeah. So I think it was in a warehouse, or I think somebody told me it had been printed and was waiting to be stitched together, something like that. But then what happened is once Diamond started shipping again, it was in the first week where things started shipping again. Bog Bodies was one of those books, and I think we'd gone through a few months of people rereading old stuff or buying collections of books that they read when they were kids, and I think there was a really nice period of people were revisiting work that they really liked, but by then there was a bit of a thirst for something new.
Mm-hmm.
And Bog Bodies just happened to come out. I think it was the top selling graphic novel that wasn't like. No, it wasn't the top one, but it was one of the top 3 or something. But also I had to keep in mind that in that quarter there weren't a lot of new graphic novels coming out. So, but hey, I'll take what I can get,
Yeah.
So I think that ended up actually helping the book because there was less competition, and there was a lot of good buzz off it. But I honestly I was not expecting. I got the email from Image about the reprint, and I was thinking maybe Time Before Time was going to get a reprint, which it did, but I was kind of waiting on whether or not that would happen. And when Image emailed me about Bog Bodies, I had to email them back and I had to go wait, do you mean Time Before Time, right? No, Bog Bodies. It's we're running out of stock. So that was very surprising because I didn't see that coming. I mean, it's all learning experience. Like Savage Town. There's plenty of copies in a warehouse somewhere, so I didn't think the Bog Bodies was going to be any different.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, for it to sell out in a year is amazing. I'm delighted. I mean, it would have been great if we printed more copies because then, you make less on a reprint.
Right.
But there was no way to know that. I mean, Image ordered more than what was ordered. If orders were better, maybe that would have been different. Who knows? But I mean, if Image are willing to reprint it for more people to read, that's all that matters, And it's great. I'm trying to think now. Can I promote this? Do I have an excuse where I can promote this book all over again?
Yo, everybody. I want to take a quick second to talk about Macroverse. Macroverse is a next-gen mobile comics app, with its tap story format making comics feel totally native on mobile devices, which you can experience over 45 series and 400 episodes, with more launching all the time. It's a perfect time to try it out, too. Many of the most popular titles like Hex 11, Dead Town, Glitch, and more are free for a limited time only, so download the app for iOS or Android and binge away. Oh, and keep an eye out on macroverse.com for some major updates on new creators, new series, and new features that bring real collectability to digital comics in a new way. Massive things are coming. If you love making, reading, and or collecting comics, you won't want to miss what Macroverse is launching this summer. And now, back to the show. Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing is like this is a topic that I'd never really thought of before. God, I did this comic marketing article for Sketched, and I talked to Gina Gagliano, the publishing director of Random House Graphic, and she brought up this idea, which is like, it shouldn't be like a, this seems like a foreign idea in the comic world, but it really shouldn't be. It's a much more book market idea. And it's just repromotion, where basically they'll repackage books that they had from the previous year. Like a good example is like there's this series at Random House Graphic called Aster and the Accidental Magic. Oh, that's the first book at least. And like each of the books has a seasonal theme. So it's like the first book is fall, the next book is winter, this book is et cetera, et cetera. So when it's like fall, they like use that as an opportunity to be like, 'tis the season for Aster and the Accidental Magic, and use that for repromotion. And I think that re-promotion should happen more in direct market books that are graphic novels, because there's no reason why you can't re-promote something like that, or even re-promote something like Savage Town. Like there's always an opportunity to find a new reader, because I mean, unless you sold like literally billions of copies and every person had one, in which case I don't think you'd be on this podcast, Declan.
No. Well, I mean, issue 2 of Time Before Time is out in like 3 weeks, and there's an ad for Bog Bodies in there. This is before I knew the reprint was happening, but and I'm going to put an ad for Savage Town in the next one. I don't like a lot of ads in Image Comics, but I don't mind an ad for like your own work, effectively. And we had an ad for Write It in Blood for issue 1, because part of the quote unquote strategy was, if like Time Before Time issues might help push Write It in Blood, which came out. It's the same creative team other than myself. But I was very involved with Write It in Blood. I designed that book after doing Bog Bodies. And I think after designing Write It in Blood, I think I was like, okay, I'm done for a while.
Yeah,
I've done 3 books now. So there's definitely like trying to find the best way to cross promote. But it's tough. With Time Before Time, I can keep promoting this every month, which is great promotion for the trade. The graphic novel comes out, and you kind of have like 2 or 3 weeks to kind of really push it, but then that's it. It's old news. So any excuse to re-promote. I was talking to Gavin when we got the news about the second printing, and he was like, "Is there anything we can do to kind of push it again?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Other than tweeting it yesterday, I'm not sure what else I can do. That I haven't already done. I guess I can talk about the soundtrack again. I guess it's possible to recycle it, what we did last year, because I think one thing I've learned is it doesn't matter how much you talk about something, somebody hasn't heard about it before.
Didn't your roommates do a trailer for it?
Yeah, a little animated trailer for it. A friend of mine did a whole soundtrack, like a whole hour-long soundtrack for the book. So I think maybe in a couple of weeks I might try and push it all over again now that Time Before Time is out. I think the hard push for that book is done. So maybe I will. I guess I have to figure out how to do that necessarily. Plus, I mean, I don't see Image doing it just because Image are doing their best with every new book that comes out. Going back to a back catalog is probably a resource they don't really have.
One thing that I think is interesting is like, I wouldn't be surprised if part of the reason why Bog Bodies connected long term is because, so you mentioned the fact that there were fewer books that were coming out during that period. So Bog Bodies came out during a time where there was a relative dearth of material. And I wouldn't be surprised if, to a certain degree, what happened is retailers were like, okay, I got like 6 comics in this week. I got like Daphne Byrne, and I got this, and I got that, and whatever. No slander to Daphne Byrne, but I just remember Daphne Byrne being one of like the first releases that came out when it came back, and I was like, really? But the thing about it is like, maybe they read that then, and then maybe they became an evangelist in a way that they couldn't normally, because there are normally so many releases. But when Bog Bodies came out, there was nothing else. So it was just like, they were all about that.
And it was done in one, it was a nice lean story that you could just pick up and read in one sitting. I think that might have helped. It was a little bit cheaper. I think it was like $12.99. It was, I'd like, the goal was to do what I hadn't done with Savage Town, which is make a much more a leaner book that was more suited to what you might think of my work.
Mm-hmm.
At a price point that was less risky for retailers. But like, the problem with that is I have absolutely no idea if it actually worked. Like, I'm really glad it's sold. It's going through second printing. I don't know why though. Like, everything we're just saying now is pure speculation. There's no way to know what works, and it's frustrating. The more you work on this stuff, you like to think you're figuring out some kind of algorithm for success.
Yeah.
But pi or x, the value of x keeps changing, so it's not like the same equation is going to work for every single book. So every project is an entirely new, exhausting challenge. Like Time Before Time, I did stuff on this that I did. Like, I didn't do a website like I did with Savage Town or Bog Bodies.
Right.
I did. What did we do? We put out online stories, done in one online stories, which I have no idea if they helped. Most people didn't see them, but I think some people did, and they liked them. We did a whole, like, the strategy was definitely different with this than Bog Bodies, but I don't necessarily think everything should be promoted the same way either.
No. I mean, anybody who subscribes to your newsletter knows you have like a ton of different projects in the hopper coming up. I mean, you have like Project Gravity, you have Project Taco Shell, Project Nirvana. I made one of those up. I don't know if listeners are going to know which one is which.
Taco Shell doesn't sound like me.
It sounds delicious, though. I mean, it sounds on its way to being delicious.
So I wouldn't.
Wait, do you say you don't like tacos?
Sorry?
Did you say you don't like tacos?
No, I've only had one ever in my life.
Oh my God. Okay, next time, I don't even know when I'm going to see you next, but next time I see you, I'm going to force you to find tacos in like the near like vicinity, and we're going to have tacos. You're going to be like, okay, why have I not had more of these?
I liked it. It was like year before last, whatever. I was visiting my sister in the Cayman Islands, and because we just don't have them here, not the way that you have them in the States. And her boyfriend, like, he just couldn't believe I'd never had one. And yeah, it was nice. I liked it.
Well, okay. Well, that would be a terrible example. So, but no matter what project you kind of have coming up, I mean, I just think it's interesting because, especially when it comes to the creator-owned stuff, it's like you were talking about the administration part of the work. It's like, no matter what you have coming up, such a significant portion of what you're going to be doing for creator-owned is going to be promotion. Like, you have to come on podcasts and chat with idiots like me about like this stuff and hope that it means somebody's going to pick it up.
And it's the worst part of it, believe me.
Oh God, it must be exhausting. I can't even imagine being on your side.
I think I've said it elsewhere. Like, it's different if you're doing like, Wolverine or Spider-Man or whatever. Like, those characters sell what they are. I was talking to a friend of mine who's my roommate, who's got a book coming out the next year. You're selling something that nobody knows that they want.
Right.
All you have is a story. You don't have some kind of identifiable IP that's going to bring people in. So it's very hard, especially with Bog Bodies, because there's a lot of kind of spoilery stuff in there, which is kind of the meat of the book. But like, you can't tell somebody that in the promotion, otherwise you're just telling somebody the story.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's very hard to, and the same with Time Before Time, there's a couple of like twists in there that like, you don't want to spoil, but so it's very hard to sell somebody on a project. I think something like Time Before Time is a little easier because it's more of a kind of there's more of a kind of a high concept genre thing that people can get on board with. Something like Bog Bodies was different. It's like it's Irish gangsters in a bog. I mean, that just sells itself, really, doesn't it?
I mean, clearly, I mean, that's my exact dream comic, so that's perfect. But I do, I had a recent interview I did with James Tynion IV about his work and about his approach to everything. And it is really interesting. One thing I had talked to him about was the idea that like Batman was basically an advertisement for Department of Truth and for like something that's killing the children because he's writing Batman, he's the guy that's doing that. He can, that's a natural transition. If a writer or if somebody likes his stuff, on that, then he can be like, have you checked out this? And then there's a crossover there. And I do think it helps to a certain degree that you have things like, Immortal Hulk Flatline, which, honestly was staggeringly well received. It was a great comic. I mean, like, honestly, a shockingly poignant one too. But I mean,
thanks,
I have to say, like, it was like the praise was effusive online, which is good because you did the writing, art, and coloring for it. So if they didn't like it, they would have no one else to blame but you.
That was a little unnerving, I'll admit. But no, I was blown away by the feedback to that. I wonder if some of it was that I hadn't had anything out in a while, drawing wise. I wonder is some of it to do because I colored it too, that there was more value placed on it. It's hard to know, but yeah, but a lot of people seem to like the actual story, which was the bit I was most worried about. I think I decided to color it as well because I wanted to kind of like I was saying before with like design, as I wanted a new challenge, and I had been coloring my own covers for a couple of years, but I hadn't done a whole narrative, and a 60-page one shot seemed like a good enough space to take some chances without doing something crazy stupid. Like I'm going to color this 10-issue series, like that would have been dumb.
Yeah.
But now I know I could do it, because 30 pages was enough space for me to like really step up, but like have something that was doable. It was nice coming off the Hulk because I think Time Before Time was announced not long afterwards, so there was a nice, similar to your point about James. I think maybe there was a nice way to start off the buzz there, but I guess because I wrote it too, that helped. I don't know. I don't know if people are willing to follow you as an artist to writing, but I think enough have done it at this stage that seems to be working for me.
I think to a certain degree in this era that name is almost as important as role, where it's like, they know that they trust Declan Shalvey to make good comics. And so if Declan Shalvey has a new comic, then to a certain degree, there is payoff there, even if there isn't a natural overlap. I do want to, I just have a few questions about Immortal Hulk Flatline. I do think it's interesting because, your story, like if you had done that comic 10 years ago as a one shot during, like, I don't even know who was on it, like let's say Jeff Loeb or Rick Remender or somebody like that. When one of those folks was on there, it would have stuck out like a sore thumb. It wouldn't have made a lot of sense. But it had the vibe of Immortal Hulk in there. Did you have like any parameters to exist within, like, from like Al and Joe's universe? Or was it really like, I don't know, you were tasked with just doing you, but with the Hulk?
No, there were some parameters. Will Moss, the editor on it, gave me a document that Al had written, which was just covered the basic rules. But I mean, it would be the same thing as like, Spider-Man can't fly, but just more specific to like Immortal Hulk, that like, each turns into the Hulk at night, not when he's angry. Like that's, if you hadn't been reading Immortal Hulk, you wouldn't know that. So there was there's no other restrictions were. But they were still very, very open. You could kind of pretty much do anything. It just had to take place roughly within the first two trades, which worked fine for me because I had only read the first two trades at that stage, and had just read them, in fact, because I'd been I'd been seeing everybody raving about it for ages, so I'd finally just read it when this came up. So, but I mean, I don't mind. I might have talked about this before, but like I don't mind restrictions up front for the most part because it gives me. Instead of me just running around an open field, it gives me like a path to follow, and I can wobble within that path, but at least I know I'm going in one direction. Whereas, otherwise it could just be spinning, running in circles over and over again. So I kind of tend to see a lot of writing the way I would see like a cover brief or something where the title has to go on top. You need space for credits, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes the title doesn't have to go on the top. It can go on the bottom. Sometimes you can switch the portrait to landscape and things like that. You can break the rules when you know the rules, but I think it's good to know the rules. And there was stuff that was kind of set up front, but nothing that was particularly like. Nothing to stop me from a storytelling point of view. I think I could have gone in various different directions with that, and they would have been totally into it.
Was one of the requirements you had to have a quote at the beginning?
Yes.
Did you pick the Yeats quote?
I did.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I had some other quotes in mind when I had a different title, but the title changed a lot.
Like Flatline?
Yeah, we ended up on Flatline, but I had various different stuff. Waiting Room was one. There was all these other things as well, but then like there was like some legal stuff, and I mean, again, it's fine. I don't mind it. Like these things need to be run by, but I think the quote was the last thing I figured out. But I had other quotes in mind, but that one just worked. Um, and yeah, I mean, I partially thought I could get an Irish writer in there. Why not?
I will say that you have been upsetting me a disproportionate amount of time lately with your writing between that issue and like what Flatline actually meant and Oscar in Time Before Time. So you need to quit that. I don't like it.
No, I don't think so, Dave. I think, well, like I don't know. I had a conversation with a creator one time about how, film is very good at like, getting emotional responses, and it's kind of harder to do in comics. Same thing like they say about horror. It's harder to you can't do that jump scare in the same way, but no, I the stuff that I like the most is the stuff that kind of resonates with me emotionally. Like Three Shadows is still a graphic novel I'll always kind of have in my top five even. And the stuff that kind of pulls the heartstrings is the stuff that kind of always gets me. So if I can do that in my own work, I'll definitely try.
No, I mean, you do a phenomenal job with it. I do also want to say that you had a very nice counterbalance because there's like excellent action and also very good, I would say subtle comedy, like in Flatline. Like one part that I really loved that you actually pointed out to me initially when you were sharing some like pages with me early on was I love the part in Flatline when the Hulk kicks the truck with the dude in it, and then like two panels later it hits a mountain. It's just like,
yeah, I don't know if anybody notices the mountain. If anyone's read it, the page after he kicks it, you can see him talking to Newland, and if you look on the hill, you can see little. Just it's very cartoony, but I don't know. I that genuinely was a moment that came to me when I was plotting it, and I just chuckled at it so hard. I just remember thinking like, please don't make me. I was like thinking like, Will Moss, don't make me take this out. There's some things I know people would fight for, be it character or things that are like just like it's intrinsic to the story, but for me it was all about that punt.
That dude, I mean, if he wasn't crushed initially when he got like, folded up in that truck, he had a very, very tough like 1 minute before he hit that mountain, or like however long it was.
You never know, like he didn't squish him into the truck, he just folded it over, so maybe he was protected in there.
Yeah, maybe it was like kind of like a barrier from the when he hit the mountain. I have to imagine he was extremely dead after that, but that man's life is not important, especially because he's fictional.
But to your point, like it's like, I mean, yeah, I remember talking to a creator one time where they think they were saying that if I was writing something, they couldn't imagine me not making a joke, and that's definitely the case. Like I'm all about my moody, dark, moments and characters and stuff, but like you need to have a joke somewhere, and yeah, that was just one of those moments where things just clicked. I'm like, I just think this is funny, and thankfully it's one of the moments people have pointed out more than anything else, which I'm very happy with.
Which one?
The punt.
Oh, the punt. Yeah, I love it.
Also because the Devil Hulk character is not a hero, and he's not an outright murderer, but he does eat people. So like, I think that was the balance of Immortal Hulk. Was this isn't the classic Hulk, and you kind of need to be reminded that like he's not a nice guy.
Yeah.
And that was a funny way to do it.
The other guy was a dick, though. So he I don't want to say he deserved it, because I don't know how many people deserve being squished in a car and kicked to a mountain. But at the same time, he wasn't a particularly nice person. But
you can't say he deserved it, but he didn't not deserve it either.
Exactly. He was in the realm of deserving it. I could see somebody argue that.
As regards the newsletter that you were mentioning, like there's lots of things I'm working on, but I'm hoping this is not annoying. What I'm trying to do with the newsletter is show a peek of what I'm working on in a way that's like interesting. And the code names are a way for me to talk about something without actually talking about it. So I was talking about the Hulk book under, I think it wasn't Gamma, that was too obvious. I had to come up with some nickname. Proton, that was it.
Oh.
Project Proton. So I'd be talking about working on Project Proton, how far I was on it before it was announced. Same thing with Time Before Time. That was Project Passenger. The Kickstarter was Passenger Plus. It's just a way for me to go, because like on Twitter and something, you have to go like, oh, this thing I'm working on, which can be very annoying. But But for me, the newsletter, having the code names is a way where I can actively talk about the thing without actually saying what it is and ruining the, Marvel's announcement or whatever it is. So yeah, I hope that's not annoying.
No, it's totally not. I mean, I actually just want to make a taco shell joke, but at the same time, like, I like, I think anything that gets people thinking about what something could be is a good thing. It's like, I've always really loved teasers in comics. And so it's just like, if, I'm not going to say anything specific, but like Project Gravity, like that's a very logical name, all things considered. But it's like when people hear that or see that, they'll probably be like, oh, okay, I get it. That makes sense. But at the same time, from the outside, it's just like, this could be anything. What could it be?
Yeah, I think once that project is out there, the term will make way more sense. But that's fun for me because better than just calling it, I don't know, Project Pencil or something, because I did. I was talking about Project Offspring, and somebody did write back guessing that it was the Carnage, the black and white and blood Carnage story. But that's great. I mean, if they're guess all you want.
They're thinking about it.
Yeah, which is good. I think that's the good thing about the newsletter is that if you really are into my stuff, then that's a space for you to actually kind of talk about it or think about it. Whereas regards something more public like Instagram or Twitter, I just don't think those are the platforms to have conversation anymore.
Yeah.
Although the newsletter is a one-sided conversation because I'm talking to you and nobody's talking back. So I have no idea if anyone's actually listening.
Well, that one person who guessed Project Offspring definitely is. But yeah. I do want to talk about Time Before Time, your new series with co-writer Rory McConville, artist Joe Palmer, colorist Chris O'Halloran, letterer Hassan Otsman El-How, designer Sasha Head, and editor Heather Antos. I'll do the quick solicit for it. The year is 2140, and to escape a world with no future, many turn to the Syndicate, a criminal organization who, for the right price, will smuggle you back in time to a better life. After working for the Syndicate for years, Tatsuo and Oscar decide to steal one of their boss's time machines, but soon find that the one thing you can't run from is your past. Now, I want to get into the origins of this here in a second, but I want to start with, this has a perfect example of what you were talking about, where you have, that kind of broody crime story, but there's also, the humor bit. And I'm not going to get into specifics. I said earlier that the Oscar stuff made me sad. I'm not going to say why, because that's a spoiler for number one. But I will say that the thing that is really fantastic about that is, there's a specific time travel related joke that Oscar makes in regards to that situation that is a perfect example of what you're talking about. And, I like that stuff where it's, you can use the sad as a opportunity to bring humor to a story in a very unique way. And I don't know if that was you or Rory to thank, or you and Rory to thank for that, but it was very good.
I can't remember, to be honest, although I think I'm getting more credit for some of the good writing in the issue that was more Rory. I was DMing the other day because I've been doing that thing that you shouldn't do, which is look at reviews, but everybody loves that joke at the beginning about Wi-Fi. I think I said to Rory, if I read one more review fawning over your Wi-Fi joke, I'm going to get sick. And he wrote back, he's like, same, I'm going to get sick too if I have to read one more person say that you wrote that. So yeah, I get fuzzy on the details now because we've been working for so long, but I think Rory is I think that the two of us are similar in regard of liking dark storytelling and similar sense of humor too. But yeah, I think it's like a I know that name's verboten now, but I think there's a Joss Whedon quote that says, make it dark, make it depressing, make it, make it horrible, but for the love of God, tell a joke.
Yeah.
And it's something, and my favorite things like The Wire. The Wire is a very, very dark, intense show, but some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen on TV is in that show too. I just, especially doing dystopian future stuff, it just can't be all dreary, and also characters living in a hellscape don't just talk about it. Okay, sometimes they do, but there's plenty of people making jokes at a funeral.
Yeah.
I think me and Rory have definitely, I think our crossover is strongest in regards our taste for that kind of stuff.
Yo, everybody, I want to take a quick second to talk about the crew over at Bad Idea. Do you like bone-shredding destruction, wanton corporate malfeasance, and reckless use of industrial machinery? Then buckle up, because Bad Idea, the unruly and experimental new comic book publisher, is back with Tankers, on sale in select comic shops now from New York Times best-selling writer Robert Venditti and blockbuster artist Juan Jose Rip. A global energy conglomerate has just solved our impending oil shortage, and their plan is pretty simple. Send a team of contractors armed to the teeth in mech suits back to the Cretaceous period, tweak the trajectory of the meteor that killed the dinosaurs, and give mankind another 500 millennia worth of oil reserves. What could go wrong? Only all of human history, of course. Tankers from Bad Idea, on sale in select comic shops now. And now, back to the show. Is that one of the odd parts of co-writing is, I mean, a part of this is a time thing, but also I imagine to a certain degree when you're co-writing with somebody, it's hard to remember where an idea started and maybe how it evolved, like that entire process. I imagine at a certain point it starts getting kind of nebulous where it's just like, unless it's very clear where it's like Rory came up with the Wi-Fi joke, you know, I imagine some of it's like a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah, a little bit. There's a moment in issue 7 that we're working on at the moment, and I remember just saying like, I'm good. You know, can I write this bit because I remember having this idea, and Rory was like, no, that was my idea. I was like, no, like that's in the email I sent last week. He's like, yeah, but I had this, so and which I didn't remember. So both of us, and I think what helped was we both said, no, it's okay, you can have it, even though we both think that we did it. But that is kind of weird. I think the weird thing for me was because we're uneven in that I'm more known, but I've less experience writing. Mm-hmm. Rory has more experience writing, but it was way less known. So I think at first I was very insecure writing with Rory because I could probably throw my weight around more because it was my name on the book and that would be what most people would know. But at the same time, I would defer to somebody who knows what they're doing. But we never really clashed on that kind of stuff. We kind of worked out a way in which we can both work on the same project together and it both be by us, even though the man hours are different. Like it's weird because like I do the covers, but that's not writing, but it's time developing. On top of a lot of the plot stuff Rory will figure out, which I'm not doing, but like I'm giving notes. And so it's weird. I think it definitely is easier and takes less time than doing it on your own, but it pretty much nearly takes as much time and is as hard because there's a level of back and forth which takes a while rather than if you're just writing yourself, you just make a call, go one way or the other. And we end up having more discussions, not about bigger things, but about some very small specific things like the name of something or,
right.
A specific panel, whereas the broader scheme of things actually has been totally fine. But I don't know. I've liked it. I think the bouncing back and forth has sharpened the story to something that is better than if he had written it on his own or I had written it on my own. And it's weird to be talking about a book where mainly I'm collaborating with a writer, a co-writer, and not necessarily say Joe, who's the artist. With Bog Bodies, me and Gavin were way more connected, and with Savage Town or Mike Henderson, depending on the book, I was definitely more involved with the artist. Whereas with Joe, we just kind of leave him off because me and Rory have done so much kind of back and forth on it that by the time the script's done, Joe's just like, cool, just works away on it.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
It's weird. Like, it's not how I thought I would be on a. I mean, it's not to say I don't talk to Joe at all. Like we get back and forth, but way more of it is with Rory. So I think by the time the script is done, I'm not like I'm happy to be hands off.
I imagine there's a lot of kind of, I don't know, feeling out in this process, just because it is. I mean, it's you're co-writing, which is a new thing, but it's also everything you've written previously were like minis, one shots, graphic novels, and this is the first ongoing you've written, and I imagine that makes it feel a little bit different because it's not like you're not aiming at a specific point. You're like not issue 6 and you're done. It's like, what comes after that first arc. You have to know that now. Yeah,
it's very frustrating because we did the whole first arc before. I think the book was announced when we were finishing Joe was finishing issue 5. And we, took a couple of weeks just to see, what the reception was, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to get a second arc. But then Image said we were. That was great. So now Rory and I had this big story meeting a while ago, and there was just, for me, it felt like there was electricity firing off it. There was so much places we can go and do, but like, I just don't know if we'll be able to, because we've no idea where sales are going to be by issue 7. That's half a year from now. We've no idea. So we wrote the first arc so that it could end there if that's where it had to.
Yeah.
But now we're getting to a place where the story we're digging into more concepts that it's going to be much harder to wrap up really fast. And that's a very difficult balance to be like, how can we dig in more, but also pull the emergency cord if sales don't back us up, It sucks. I wish we just knew how far we could go and right towards it, but them's the breaks. But saying that, all signs point to positive. Like I think we're just I think we're just going to keep going and see if we. It could mean a very unsatisfying ending if we just have to cancel the book, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I'm pretty optimistic where we could really dig into this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's going well so far. I mean, the first issue sold out. I mean, it's a lot of very positive results, but I will say
reviews have been great. Like I'm like, this is some of the best reviews I've ever gotten. I didn't even draw the bloody thing. But
it's that Wi-Fi joke Rory wrote, or you wrote.
That really so that made all the difference. No, I mean, I'm not being down on it at all. I'm just trying to be straight up and like I could tell you, like, it's nothing but successful and we're going till forever. But that would be disingenuous. I mean, that's possible, and I hope that's the case. It's entirely possible. As long I think if we just find an audience that can keep the book, profitable.
Yeah.
This could. I mean, we had a rough plan for where the story could go, but after we talked recently, we realized there's just so many pockets that we can go into that there's actually way more. There's a lot more real estate to the concept and characters than what we were originally planning. So I'd love if we could dip in. Plus, I'm really enjoying this kind of machine that we set up now, where me and Roy will hammer out the story, and Roy will write script and I'll write script, and like we have a machine that's getting this book done, and it's been very unstressful because Joe's so ridiculously professional. It's been very smooth, since it's come out, and it's great. I'd love the idea of a nice, smooth creator-owned book that I can just, hop on and do some writing and be creative and step off without it taking like up every single hour of my life. Like if I was writing and drawing something.
I do think it's funny. I mean, you found the perfect way to do that. You just basically took your own self and attached yourself to a team that had already done a book together and just went forward with that. I mean, like, they already had it down. Just add sprinkle a little Declan on there, and all of a sudden you got a new book.
Add some extra sugar to that cake, baby.
Exactly. Well, I do think, speaking of time travel, though, I do think it's really funny that, one of those weird things about comics, or really anything, is it's just like people are like, oh my God, this hot new book, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, this actually was conceived at Thought Bubble in 2018. So it's like new in the sense that it was just released, but it's like for you and Rory, you've been living with it for years.
Yeah, for yonks now. We were hammering it back and forth. I mean, we're trying to figure out what it would be, because the original idea was for me to co-write something with Rory. Rory, I think, is a tremendous writer, and he didn't really have much exposure in the States. I wanted to write more, but I knew that, like, where I was at the time, wanting to do like a monthly comic would be something I wasn't able for at the time. So it was just a conversation at first. We're having a back and forth, and I figured we'd do something sci-fi. Because just being purely realistic, sci-fi is a popular genre in monthly comics in the way that crime isn't, which is why Bog Bodies is a graphic novel and wasn't a monthly series. But then the more we talked about it, the more the crime element came in, and I think we both found our Venn diagram crossed over more. So it was a slow process of just kind of figuring out how to work with each other, because neither of us had co-written before, and it was a big, very, very long gestation period. But once Joe kind of got involved and we had like scripts done, things came together much faster. And it's weird. It was so long, and then it's come together so fast. But it's great to finally have it out there.
Yeah. So I have a theory as to why it connected as well as it did. You ready for it?
Hit me. Yeah,
Okay.
go.
So, when you guys conceived this, we were in a considerably different world than we are now. But one of the things, there's two different parts in it that I think are really resonate in, this 2021 current pandemic / some people would say post-pandemic landscape we're in. And there's like this one line that Tatsuo has in the book, which is, he says, we got to be living it through one of the shittiest periods in human history, which is like weirdly a very universal sentiment right now. It's like people just feel like the world sucks. At the same time, it offers, the idea of an escape. It offers the idea of like, what if you could time travel and go to a time that was better and a better fit for you, perhaps? Whether you're like a family or, let's say like maybe a murderous psychopath, like in the first book. But, and then like Oscar says, like, there's the whole part about where he says it all goes by so fast. It's like it's not just time travel, but it's like, it's very much confronting, time in like the period of time you're in, and also like your part in that time. And I think that that's something that people are really thinking about a lot anyways. So whether it's crime or sci-fi or whatever, it has that human element of like our own relationship with the period of time we live in our part in that I think is a very universal sentiment right now. And I think that might be more powerful now than if it came out 3 years ago.
Yeah, that could entirely be the case. I think those things though were there before, say, something like the pandemic hit.
I know. Yeah, I'm sure.
But I think after the pandemic, it's definitely. I mean, things have gotten crazier culturally, and with an entire world working from home, like I'm sure you've had this conversation. I've had it with loads of people. Is like I just had it with Heather yesterday. Like, how is May nearly over already?
Yeah.
It just started, and someone just reminded me that the Deadpool arc I did came out in 2013. It's nearly 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Like it's maybe it's because the age I'm at or whatever, but I definitely think it's happening culturally where time is just seems to be so. It's becoming more subjective, weirdly. But also, I think as a culture, we're kind of bordering on this kind of obsession with nihilism.
Yeah.
And it was definitely before pandemic, but it's been exacerbated now. So I think some of the things I was thinking of when Rory and I were developing this project about like, the obsession with the negative and romanticization of the past, I think things like that were already in the culture, but have definitely been ramped up in the last year, definitely. So, I guess it's hard to know, if that's what's resonating with people. But I mean, I think it's bound to things. I think it's why people come up, with a similar concept. Like there's a couple of vampire books out in a year, or there's a couple of zombie books out or something. So some things kind of catch into the zeitgeist. I think maybe we, unwittingly have done that.
Totally.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, you've been working on Time Before Time for forever. I mean, I remember you brought it up to me probably before the pandemic. So it's like this.
Yeah, I think it was 2008. I'm thinking maybe Rory trying to figure out which top up it was, but it had to be like 2019 anyway, probably.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it is kind of interesting. This is like to bring up another not very well loved filmmaker, understandably. But I mean, it's like one story that I actually thought of involving this that has. Everyone brings up Looper. Everyone brings up all these stories. It kind of reminded me in some ways of Midnight in Paris. I don't know if you've ever seen Midnight in Paris, but
I actually haven't. No.
Oh, Midnight in Paris is, it's a Woody Allen movie that's basically about a dude who finds like a way to time travel in Paris to like the Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald time, wherever like all these writers were there. It was like the most romantic period in like this period that he idealized forever. And one of the ultimate points in the story is that like you idealize the past because you're not part of it, but it's not necessarily like your best version of time is not necessarily someone else's best version of time. And it's all very relative. It's like if you're in 2021, it might seem like trash, but if you're in 2140, 2021 might seem amazing. And
yeah, like I think we as humans look at the world in a very very specific way. Like we live what, like 60 to 100 years, whatever. Um, and none of us really know what it was like in the past, so we don't know what it's going to be like in the future. And we all make certain like value judgments based on now, but like not where, in 100 years we could all be considered complete monsters for eating meat. And some would say that now, but we have no idea where things are going to go, or how at this time will be looked at. And I think maybe it's a little narcissistic that we're all just wrapped up in ourselves right now, and we think we're the most important thing. But I think I was reading somewhere that like 2017 was voted the worst year ever in 2017. And then that record was broken in 2018 when 2018 was voted the worst year in the world. And it's like, is it really that they were the worst years in the world, or like our perception of, progress and time and values completely warped by our own very limited experience? And
Oh yeah,
I kind of liked that idea. And also, romanticization of the past is like, I don't understand how there's people who will complain about people romanticizing the past while they catastrophize the present.
yeah,
So,
and they kind of go hand
like,
in hand.
both I think are neither are healthy, but I but I think romanticization of the past is a very powerful tool that's been used a lot. And I kind of wanted to like, show, culturally, if you went into the past, like things would be very different. You wouldn't necessarily acclimate very easily, and also that doesn't, it doesn't need to be back in the 60s. Like it's not necessarily a spoiler, but in issue 2 we're going to be going to the past. But actually, wait, that is a spoiler. I won't say. I mean, it's not necessarily the reader's past we go to. It's all over the map. Time is way more broad than just like the 70s up till now.
Yeah, I mean that is one of the beautiful things about having a time travel story is like, I imagine when you and Rory talked about like what could come, literally anything is on the table when time travel is on the table. It makes it very amorphous. But I do really quick, I have to ask, if Tatsuo was like escaping you to the past, would there be a time you'd want to go to, or you just stick it out in the present?
I've been asked it a few times, and I've had a stupid answer. I'm trying to think of a good thing. I'd
You wouldn't go to the dinosaurs? That'd be a terrible time. I would last like 5
I wouldn't last. No, I'm thinking like the 90s. Go to the 90s and start up Image with all those other guys, but make like all the decisions that like knowing how things would go, plan for those, and like have my own company and make my own comics and things like that. Those sound amazing. What they managed to do and what happened to that time. Yeah, I'd try get in on that action probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the people who time travel in the book are not supposed to have like material impacts on stuff, but I would definitely use it purely for selfish reasons. To like,
I would say that they. I mean, you could say we can do anything, but actually we can't. We've kind of made very specific rules about what you can't do.
You can't biff it. You can't do biff from.
No, you can't. Like you can't, and you can't become your own grandfather, like in Futurama or Red Dwarf. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I have
not. Those kind of things. No, like it's kind of, we're definitely establishing rules as we go through the series, that like I think the usual time travel tropes of like what what happened, you can go back and stop your wife from being killed, that kind of stuff. Like, no, you can't do that. You can't change time.
You can't bury Alan in it.
No, but what the Syndicate do is they basically work within loopholes and become rich. And that's kind of like, these people are living within the insignificance of time, effectively. And we don't say why you can't change things, but like there is a reason, and we'll get to it eventually.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to put a stick, just stop people from kind of going. What happens in time travel stories is it feels like there are no consequences because you can just go back and change things, and that's something we didn't want. We wanted time travel not to be the thing you're talking about, but like the thing that gets us to the more dramatic moments and pushes characters in places where they have to go, not opens doors that they can just kind of they can go to any place. Because I think that that would get very boring very fast.
Yeah, it's a mechanism for drama. It's a mechanism for like the story. I mean, like that's the thing is like, I know that like crime, the blending of crime and time travel, like the science fiction elements of it have been something that people have brought up a lot. But it's just like really those elements, those genres, those identities are not really like for any story. That's not what defines the story. The story defines the story. Those are just like the world it lives in.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One more question about this part of Time Before Time. I do want to bring up Joe Palmer because he does a fantastic job. Actually, everyone does. Chris O'Halloran does an amazing job. Hassan Othman El Hal always does a great job. And
Hashtag outcred.
The aforementioned Sasha Head was staggering, but I do want to bring up one thing I really loved in the first issue. I brought this up to you when we chatted about it a long time ago. I love in the first issue when Joe uses like a fisheye type like look.
Yeah,
as like there's like I think it's 4 panels that, or maybe it's 5, and it's Oscar and Tetsuo walking and like discussing their grand plan to escape with a pod and everything like that. And every single panel shows them slightly, further to the right as they're walking, but it's all in this fisheye filter. I don't know. I do like the idea that you and Rory do your thing and then hand it off. But I do have to ask, was the fisheye all Joe?
fisheye was all Joe.
So good.
Yeah, like in the script, I think we had a lot of background stuff in the script, but like there's definitely stuff Joe put in there himself. Like I'm looking at it now, I think some of the graffiti is his, but like some of the new stuff is ours. But like we needed. You're trying to do exposition in a way that like engages the reader, and for us, like this is a way to show time passing, but not like time traveling. But that fisheye thing that Joe did is great. He does it again in issue 5 in a certain place, and like that's hard to draw. Drawing fisheye is very hard, and I wouldn't do it. Frankly, you will never see me do it.
It was cool.
But yeah, Joe's got a great eye for warping perspectives. Excuse me, and proportions and stuff. It's really interesting. Like it's his real strength as a cartoonist, and I love seeing him do it.
Yeah, I love seeing how he did that, like the left to right, and then following it up with like they were outside the club, I think it was, and they had their masks on and everything that they're walking around. It's all of what they were doing there, all of what Joe did on that page is like that really subtle world building that like you're not really, a reader's not necessarily thinking about, but then you kind of look around the details and you see like, I forgot, actually I have the book right next to me. Why am I not looking at it? But anyways, you look at that page and you see all these little things that it's like, let's see, global GDP expected to drop by 8%. New report predicts crop crisis in next decade. You have all these little things, and it's just, I don't know, it kind of reminds me in some ways of Children of Men, where it's like Children of Men is always like very subtly building in these details to the future without like hammering you with it. And like that's part of the magic of that movie is it's able to deliver exposition in a way that doesn't feel like exposition. And I think you guys do that really well.
No, that I really appreciate that, man, because that was definitely a concern. Because especially with these kind of high concept things, you don't want to have to stop the reader for them to read this big, explanation. Like it's as a reader, I hate it, and as a creator, I do too. And there was something Rory and I were very concerned about. I think it's why Rory pushed to make it 30 pages or 31, so that we didn't have to like have those moments in a 20-page comic. And instead, maybe just like expand the first issue so that we can build a world more organically rather than shoehorning in everything you need. And case in point, there's exposition happening in that page, but like it's happening in images, not necessarily words. And I think like Joe's great at that. And you can write that into a script all day, but it's no guarantee that it's going to sell off in the artwork. But Joe does it like with like the way the litter is on the ground, and like I said, people with masks, and and this is all drawn when did he draw issue 1? Yeah, I would have. I think it was even before the pandemic. I can't, man. My brain's gone. Forgive me. But that it's subtle world building, and so much of that really hinges on the art. And Joe's just phenomenal at it. Like I love his stuff. It's I like how compositionally bold and decisively cartooned, and Chris coloring it too. Like I'm getting annoyed with how many reviews are complimenting Chris because he doesn't need the ego boost.
Yeah.
But the two of them together have this really interesting, like Chris doesn't take away from the spatial element of Joe's work, but also with specific kind of color choices really helps them kind of accentuate them. It's like sitting on this book for the last year has been torture because I just think it looks amazing. So it's really satisfying seeing people respond to the stuff that all of us really have enjoyed about the book. Has been very satisfying.
Yeah. Well, I do like, I mean, I have to say, like, for anyone that's interested in this stuff, you did just do a Kickstarter for the entire process, like a process edition for Time Before Time. I don't know whose terrible idea that was, but I'm sorry that you had to go through that. But
well, your listeners should know that was your idea.
well, I wasn't going to take credit. I was just going to make a facetious comment. But
hey, I'm all about credit where credit's deserved. So you deserve the credit, and you also deserve the blame for ruining my life for 2 months.
I was going to ask, like, how did you? I mean, I shudder to say, did you enjoy the Kickstarter experience? But did you? I don't know. I mean, like, I know you talked to Elza Charretier for this, like, because she's an ace at Kickstarters and everything like that, and like you were paying attention to what other people were doing. Do you think after that one experience, after doing the process edition, that like that's something that is another tool in your tool belt if you ever want to do it again?
I'm not sure. I'm 50-50 on it now.
Yeah.
The book's done, and it looks great, and I'm very, very happy with it. Sasha, oh my God, it's lovely. There's just great material by everybody. Like, everybody contributed to the book, be it like, there's commentary over some of Joe's pages by the whole team. There's an interview with Joe. There's a conversation with me and Rory talking about co-writing. I get into my cover process. The expanded version has stuff bit by Sasha about design and Chris. I just think it's going to be a great book. I was on the phone with my mom. She's actually going to be doing all the postage and stuff. Yeah, my mom's doing all the fulfillment. It's the only reason I said I would do it because I told my mom about it. And she's like, I'd do that. I'm like, grand, you can do it. So, and like, she's not enjoying this week. But I'll see how I feel after it's all sent out. I think I'm just about to get the money from Kickstarter. So I'm going to look at like how much money was made, because when you and I were talking about this, you suggested as a way to promote the book, which is what it was. It was a way for me to talk about the book, which wasn't down to the preview pages that come out from previews or, whatever press release from Image. There's a big gap that happens sometimes, leading up to before FOC and after FOC, and before publication. And it did I think the Kickstarter could have done better had I maybe released it now, after the first issue is out.
Because now people are curious about it because they've read it.
Yeah, I think that would have been a smarter way to have a successful Kickstarter. But the point of it was really to have something to promote the actual book. And I think it did that. I think that the book would have done a little less well, but the Kickstarter would have done much better. But the point was, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that. I think it did what I wanted it to do.
Yeah.
If I was aiming to have a more successful, quote unquote, Kickstarter, I think I would have done it now. But there's a lesson there, I guess. Like, if I was going to do it again, so I don't know. I have like 2 ideas to do maybe a Kickstarter book, but it kind of needs to be worth the money.
Right.
Because I paid Sasha. I'm going to have to pay my own mother. Can you believe it? I pay my own mother to fulfill this stuff. She doesn't just do it for the love. So I think when it's all said and done and everything's paid for, all the packaging, all the prints, all the everything, and I see like what I'm left with, I have to kind of look at that and go, was that worth the stress of 2 months,
right,
or 3 months? Because there's the putting everything together at first, which was very stressful, then the actual campaign, which I was trying to do while drawing a Marvel book and promoting the Image series. Like, that was not easy. That was a lot of work. And as regards what we were saying about time and how to use your time better, I think I'll have to have a look at it and see. But I know I'd like to do like I was thinking I'd do a poll on Twitter and see, but I know they're not exactly representative. But I'd love to do a book of sorry, I moved the chair, by the way.
Yeah.
I didn't fart. Or did I? But I'd love to do a book of my layouts, because everyone's always talking about those.
Of your what?
Of my layouts. The layouts I post, when I do a book, I tend to post my layouts afterwards. Everyone always really likes those. So I like the idea of maybe putting a book of those together. or maybe doing an art book that isn't specifically Marvel stuff. But I don't know. I don't know if there's much demand in the direct market for that stuff. If it's there, it's probably Kickstarter. Um, but I think the process edition is probably a good idea of what audience there would be for that. So I think in a month I'll have a much better idea if it's something that is worth the time, money investment. But
Yeah.
but I'll probably feel better. Well, in a couple of months, I'll probably won't remember how my brain will just forget how stressful it was, and just go, yeah, you should do that again. Why not? I like the avenue though. I like that there's that avenue I can use. I just yeah, I'm not. I don't know if it's going to be worth it all, but I suspect it probably will be.
I mean, I think that like an art book would undeniably do better if it was, if it's like if you just, because I know that your Kickstarter identity is Art Deco. Like if you did an Art Deco art book, I bet that would do considerably better just because you're the focus and it's not tethered to a story that people aren't necessarily familiar with. I mean, if it, what's that?
Sorry, no, that's true in that, like, say, Joe is quote unquote unknown, basically. So there isn't a massive demand for his stuff just yet. I did try and put I tried to put my own work in there as much as I could as regards covers, but case in point, it was a Kickstarter for a book that wasn't out yet with an artist that wouldn't be as known as me. So, if it was me drawing it, I think, like, I have an idea for a book I want to do, write and draw an image, and I think I would definitely try it for that because I think it would do better. But I think I talked to you about doing this in the first place, and I was saying I might do it for a book down the line, and it might have been you. I can't remember, but I thought it was you said, like, why wait? Why not just try it and see how it works? And it's not a failure. I'll definitely cover my costs because I worked out what it was going to cost, and that was my target, and we hit that in the first day, which is great. So it's definitely was a success. It's just, I guess,
How big of a success was
concern
it?
is how much of a success considering the time investment it took. But like I said, I suspect it'll go in that favor though.
Yeah, but I mean, one thing that's also true is as a lot of people can attest to, every successful Kickstarter you have like promotes future success because now you have that list of everybody who backed that you can immediately message and say, hey, I got this new one. So let's say you do like an Art Deco one, or you do one for your next image book or something like that. You start with like a theoretical base, and then you can kind of add to that base from there. I don't know. I mean, the world of crowdfunding, it's like, I know a lot of people seemingly have this idea, not a lot of people, some people have this idea that you just do a Kickstarter and all of a sudden you become rich or something like that. And I know that is not the case for you, but at the same time, I do think that there is an advantage to building from like one project to another. And like, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of stress, but time has an amazing ability to make you forget about that. And so maybe this time next year you'll have amnesia and you're like, let's do this again.
Well, yeah, but I mean, part of it was also like, let's say there was another pandemic and the same thing happened with distributors shut down. Now I have an avenue where I could make something. If I was really stuck, if image wasn't an option for me, and I wanted to like do I mean, I don't think I doubt I will do comics via that platform. Just because I have a publisher like Image, I'm a loyalist in that regard. Probably shouldn't say that in Ireland, but means something completely different. But I'm very lucky to be in a position where Image tends to publish what I pitch them, so I'm all on board in that regard. And I don't necessarily want to be, I think that art books are more niche. Like if you do them through the direct market, it's going to take a long, long time before you make money in it because you don't know what the orders are going to be. Whereas with Kickstarter, you know exactly what your orders are going to be, and you have a very good idea what your profit's going to be, and you get it up front, which makes it way more feasible a project to be made. And I like making things, so I don't know. I'm trying to. I guess I'm trying to downplay it a little bit, but I suspect that in a few months I'll probably want to do another project, be it an art book or some kind of process type stuff, because I also think that's kind of my brand, quote unquote. People seem to like it that I share process stuff. So I think making process stuff is something that would work for me more than, say, doing comics through that platform. But like I said, like we were saying after COVID, like having multiple avenues in which you can make a living it's just smart.
Yeah, absolutely. It insulates you from that. I don't know. I will definitely support an art book if you end up doing it, but I end up supporting all the stuff you do, Declan. But just like this interview,
You fool.
but this is all I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about Time Before Time, the Kickstarter, Immortal Hulk, your nebulous nature as an artist. I'm just kidding. I appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure, man. Anytime, you know that.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with writer-artist Declan Shalvey. You can find him on Twitter at Declan Shalvey and in Time Before Time at Image Comics. Love Off Panel, want to support it? Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts today and give the show a rating or review while you're at it, but 5 stars only. You can also support the show by backing on Patreon. Find the show on Patreon at patreon.com/offpanel. And when you back it on there, you get early access to each week's podcast as well as weekly content and more. Want even more? Subscribe to my subscription comic site, Sketched, at sketch.com for long-form articles, interviews, and the rest of the site's content, and its members-only forum. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by liking it on Facebook at /Sketched, that's SKTCHD. Follow on Twitter and Instagram at @SketchComic or following me at @SliceFriedGold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Elsa Chartier, Luke Nakashoji, Elliot Metz, Dr. Luke, Scott Hazelwood, Scott Buon, Michael Tung, Canadian by Proxy, Johnny Cannon, Zach Thompson, Bradley Rader, Carl Troy, Megan Marsden, Brandon DePillis, Patrick Brower, Declan Shalvey, Dan Garino, Josh Williamson, Adam Freeman, Ben Wild, Brian Klein Q, SB, Antonio Offen, Nick Bennett, Daniel Whitfield, Scotty Young, Susanna Polo, Jeff Weira, Reed Hinkley Barnes, Mario Tiambang, AbductedTheComic.com, Andrew Carita, Matt Mahoney, Charlie Chu, Stephen Hall, Pensacola Pop Comics, Kim Eslin, Philip Myra, Kristen Sheldon, Kenny Porter, Chris Pacello, Torrin Grunbeck, Fuzz Bubbles, Christopher Todd, Transmitter Down, Waltz Comics and Books, Carl Mizell, Danny Ollie, Paul Slates, Akil Wilson, Alex Dimitriopoulos, Terry Dodson, Liana Kingus, Wesley Gift, Sean Kirkham, Alistair Ross, Julio Anta, Brett A. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Reinwa, Vita Ayala, Tara Ferguson, Dave Slusher, WMQ Comics, Akil Kokachi, Sean Pinello, Ken Heidelman, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, Ryan Alcock, Nick David Kelly, Robert Wilson IV, Nick Polito, Brendan Fletcher, Jonathan Nilsson, Matthew Groom, Jason Massey, Adam Bogert, Matthew Taylor, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Barali, Nick Hall, Bjorn Basin, John Hendricks, Steve Aronson, Ian Maxfield, Cliff Chang, Colin McMahon, Chris Palmer, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Kat McKenzie, Adam Highfield, Fiona Staples, Mark Abnett, Mike Murphy, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonakos, Norbert, Niccolo, James Kaplan, and Mission Comics and Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Upright T-Rex Music, who wrote and performed Off Panel's theme song just for the show. Check out their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in July when Off Panel returns after a short break.